welcome, and as I like to start my class, let's get started. So I'd like to welcome all of you to this event. It's really a joy, I can't say that enough, to be here with you in person after 2 long years. We are so happy to welcome you back to campus at last. And my name is Sue Mantell. I am the department head of mechanical engineering. I actually hold an interesting chair title. It's the James J. Ryan Professor and Head. And I would just say a few words about James J. Ryan because I always think it's an interesting story. He's a very famous faculty member in mechanical engineering who invented the black box and well known for crashing cars in the back parking lot of mechanical engineering. So to have a chair named after Crash Ryan is really quite noteworthy. But at any rate, it's my pleasure to introduce Dean Andrew Alene, and I know that he will introduce himself to you personally in a moment. I wanted to share a few highlights of his extensive experience that he brings to the College of Science and Engineering. And I just would like to add that I am in mechanical engineering, and Dr. Alene, Professor Alene, Dean Alene is well known in our community. And so we were so excited as mechanical engineering faculty to have a dean who is a mechanical engineer. So with that, I'll just start with some of his accomplishments. He's an accomplished researcher, educator, and academic leader. And before he came to the College of Science and Engineering, Andrew was the Ralph M. and Catherine V. Fisher Professor in Engineering. I don't think they did any crashing in that title, and he was director of a multi-university research center at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He served for 4 years as associate dean for research at the University of Urbana-Champaign for the Granger College of Engineering, and as a past associate department head for their Department of Mechanical Science and Engineering. In addition to the many accolades he has received for teaching and mentorship of students, Andrew's ambitious research program focuses on developing innovative systems and tools for energy and power systems, manufacturing systems, and transportation systems. And he has this interesting acronym for the center. It's the POETS, ERC, I think, right? POETS. He holds his PhD and master's degree in mechanical engineering from UC Berkeley, and he has an undergraduate degree in mechanical and aerospace engineering from Princeton. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my colleague, Dean, Professor Andrew Alene. And I hope I said the last name right. All right.
So, good evening, everyone. And thank you again. I'll repeat what Sue said. Thanks so much for returning to campus this evening. It's great to see you all. And a special thank you to my boss, Professor Sue Mantell. See, I'm in her department, so technically she's my boss, for that warm introduction. And to the campus and community leaders who are joining us here today. Now, it is truly my honor to welcome you to our first in-person public event in more than 2 years, as Professor Mantell had said. It's really a delight to be here together with you, gathering once again as a community of CSE alumni, students, faculty, staff, friends, both in person and those who are with us online. Tonight is also my first public lecture as Dean of the esteemed College of Science and Engineering. For those of you who don't know me, I'd like to take a few moments to introduce myself. I joined CSE this past January, so this is week 13, from the University of Illinois, where I'd spent nearly 30 years there. And in that institution, I had held multiple positions. I was a faculty member, an administrator, and also a parent of a student. So to all you parents out there who, support your child doing STEM, I would like to say thank you for supporting your child's interest in STEM. And to all you students out there who have parents who support you in STEM, you should probably say thank you to them as well, too. In addition to those roles, I've worked in many other organizations over the course of my career, including NASA, Ford Research, Caterpillar's Research, and the Air Force. Now, I spent the last several years leading, as Dr. Mantell said, an interdisciplinary research center that was focused on advancing electrified mobility. You may see that in the form of Tesla, and be one of the most common ways. This was a multi-million-dollar-a-year high-tech center developing systems for electric cars, boats, and yes, even airplanes. We will fly in electric-powered airplanes at some point in time in the next 40, 50 years. Here we partnered across multiple universities, along with companies such as Toyota, GM, Ford, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, CAT, as I mentioned before, John Deere, Raytheon, Rolls-Royce, amongst others. And there are many exciting aspects to this from a technical perspective, as well as a person perspective. But one of the most exciting was the ability to see how basic science and engineering developed products that directly impacted the human condition. So developing the new electrified powertrain systems, they do increase mobility efficiency, but they also play a key role in mitigating climate impact by us. And this ability to impact our world through STEM and STEM-related efforts is one of the key things that I noticed about the University of Minnesota when I was considering relocating from the cold to the colder. Now, Minnesota is a world-class institution of learning, and I am really grateful. I kid about the cold. I've had nothing but a very warm welcome from all people that I've run across. And I'm very grateful for that reception to date. I'm proud to call the Twin Cities my home right now, and I look forward to wonderful things that are going to come from the university in the future, including the valuable partnerships with the broader Minneapolis industry and community, as well as across the state. So thank you for making me feel here at home already. So we're here tonight, though, not about me, it's about Jayshree, to welcome a distinguished member of our community and a dynamic and passionate leader. This is Dr. Jayshree Seth. So Dr. Seth is part of CSE's lecture series, Rising to the Moment. This was launched last fall as a way to mark the successful completion of the university's $4 billion, that's with a B, dollar-driven campaign, which is going to greatly impact our students going forward. The generosity of our donors during the campaign gave CSE incredible upward momentum, moving us forward in inspiring directions. The campaign was really a milestone in CSE's community commitment to both giving it back and paying it forward. But the journey is not over. By no means. We face the urgent and at times challenging work of the future with the same optimism and determination that fueled us during the Driven campaign. We here at CSE are more committed than ever to making our world-class undergraduate and graduate education in both science and engineering attainable for all students. Also engaging our community and advancing our faculty's research to tackle the world's most urgent needs while translating those solutions to impact everyday life. Together, I'm confident that we'll continue to rise to the moment, as it were. Now, today's science and engineering challenges demand creative and educated minds. The more diverse those minds are, the better the solutions will be and the greater the impact that CSE will continue to have on Minnesota, the nation, and the world. And for the second lecture in the new series, I want to focus on issues of great import to our core mission of developing ideas and people. And no one is better prepared to speak to this than our featured speaker, Dr. Jayshree Seth. The title of her talk includes STEM advocacy. I'm obviously a proponent of this advocacy. I also want those in the audience to know that you don't need to study or work in STEM to be an advocate. Advocacy means that you support the efforts in STEM and understand their benefits to society. Most people who aren't in STEM or interested in STEM feel that maybe it's not for me, but it actually does involve you. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. But as you go out into your community, help to communicate that you don't need to understand the details to know how it impacts your everyday life and appreciate its importance. Being able to access information anywhere with a phone, getting here tonight with the help of an online map, receiving vaccines that help us get through the pandemic, and talking to a loved one via Zoom, even though you can't be with them, et cetera, et cetera. These are all elements that impact the human condition and are enabled by STEM. Right here in our college, with its distinguishing combination of science and engineering and its dual missions of teaching and research, it makes CSE effectively the best place to carry out this advocacy. So to ask that as you listen to Dr. Seth, you ask yourself how you can become an advocate and have our wider society continue to support STEM broadly, even if it is not something that you studied or plan to study or your friends studied. I hope that you as students, faculty, alumni, and friends will continue to engage with us as we collectively advocate for this important work. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our featured speaker, Dr. Jayshree Seth. Jayshree Seth is a corporate scientist at 3M and 3M's first ever chief science advocate. She joined 3M in 1993 after an MS and PhD in chemical engineering from Clarkson University in New York. She currently holds 75 patents for a variety of innovations. She serves on the board of the Science Museum of Minnesota, on the Engineering Advisory Council for Clarkson University, on the AAAS Committee on Science, Engineering, and Public Policy, and the advisory group of the Aspen Institute's Our Future of Science program. Clearly, this is a very accomplished woman. She is a published author of 2 books, the proud parent of 2 adult children, and her husband, Raghu Padiath, is also a 3Mer. And if she looks familiar, it's because she was the scientist featured in the 3M primetime ads. In 2020, Jayshree and Raghu established the Sankofa Scholarship for undergraduate students in the College of Science and Engineering, which aims to increase representation of Black students in science, technology, engineering, and math fields. We at CSE are incredibly honored to count Jayshree and Raghu among our partners in our work to educate and train future scientists and engineers whose own diverse life experiences will equip them to address the diverse and complex challenges ahead. So with that, please help me by extending a very warm welcome, a very warm U of M CSE welcome to Dr. Seth.
Thank you, Dean Aline, Professor Aline, Dr. Aline, for the kind introduction. And we met over Zoom, but it's very nice to finally meet you in person and welcome you to Minnesota. And welcome also to the live audience. It is so exciting to actually see people and talk to real people. Before we get to the matter at hand, I should mention the reason is because I'm one of those people who talks with my hands. Any hand talkers here? Oh, wow. So you know what I mean. Zoom just cut us out. I mean, like literally cut us out. So I feel wholesome today. So thank you for that. And we all learned things about ourselves in the last 2+ years. Things about ourselves, things about others around us, because we spent a lot of time with them, and then things about the world. And if you sort of zoom out, you see so much has changed. And if you zoom in, you realize so much more needs to change. You know, if you think about it, virtually all of humanity, we faced the same existential crisis. Most of us confronted the same fears, and many of us waited our turn for the gift of science in the vaccine. And science. Wow, science was in the public discourse. And scientists were center stage in the evolving story of the pandemic. So it is really an honor to be here to share some of the work that we're doing on the public perception of science and why we all believe it is a great time to advocate for science. So, show of hands. How many think that the perception of science has changed because of the pandemic? Oh, that was an easy question. Now the tough one. How many of you think it has become more positive or more negative? See, the questions get progressively harder. You can perhaps rationalize either way. I see some of you arguing with yourself. I can just literally see it. Well, since you cannot fast forward my presentation, I will let you know. The punchline, science is actually having its moment right now. And there's no doubt in my mind that science will vanquish this pandemic. But in this unique moment in time, we are seeing the role of science and scientists and professionals in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, And the public is recognizing and realizing that as well. And that is why it is a very important time for us to advocate for science and for adequate representation in STEM, because the public is expecting that as well. So let me show you some data. We already talked about what you thought. Science skepticism actually declined for the first time in 3 years. And before that, it was steadily rising. But with the pandemic, it is actually down. And people trust science and scientists. It's very interesting to see what is going on. What else is happening? But before that, you're probably thinking, why are we studying science like this at 3M? So I'll back up and just quickly give you a brief background. So you all probably know about this, right? Science is central to who we are. It is our most distinguishing characteristic. It ties our businesses together, and it's the foundational strength behind our brand, 3M Science Applied to Life. And we are here to unlock the power of people and ideas and science and really reimagine what is possible so we can advance companies, enhance homes, and improve lives. Science is also central to our sustainability framework. We have 3 pillars: science for circular, science for climate, and science for community. And 3M has been active in all the communities that we operate in, wherever we are in the world. Just in 2021, we spent $43 million in education initiatives for STEM encouragement. In 2020, our CEO announced a $50 million social justice fund to close the racial inequality gap, and STEM equity was a big part of that as well. So we are very active in all of those. And we are committed to our innovation, but we want to create a world that is more diverse and invite people to join in this positive world and community in science. So we care about science. We wanted to understand what the public thought about science. And we didn't find any results that were relatively recent and global in nature. So we commissioned a survey, went to 14 countries, 14 respondents per country, 1,000 respondents per country, so 14,000 in all. And I can show you the countries that we went to. So it's what are deemed as developed and developing countries. And the results we got from that are very interesting. Now, Dean, we are in Minnesota. Interesting is an interesting word. Usually doesn't mean good, but it's interesting. So who wants to know what the world thought about science in 2018? All right. 4 out of 10 said if science didn't exist, their lives would be no different. You asked for it. 32% of the people call themselves science skeptics, and in this population, 60% said if science did not exist, their lives would be no different. Yeah, that was my reaction too. Can you imagine? Now, let me tell you this. They were taking their survey on their laptops and mobile phones. So, science is invisible, science is underappreciated, and science is taken for granted. That is the problem. What are some of the other things they said? Oh, I was very excited about science when I was a kid. I don't have any need to understand science as an adult. Well, we all saw how that played out. There are others who said only geniuses can have a career in science. So thank you, Albert Einstein, but no thanks. Why? Because if you think about it, exactly the people that we need in science are going to be deterred when they hear the word genius. And no surprise, women trailed men in the positive sentiment for science. When asked if you can have a satisfying career in engineering, 25% of the men globally agreed. We got to work on that too. But in women, only 9% said yes. So we definitely have issues. And then this is the best part. Parents said, we want our kids to do science. So here we are. I don't care about science, not so much for me, but you go kids, you do science. How does that work? I mean, we all know, those who are parents, that we impart our biases whether we want it or not, sometimes on purpose. So it's kind of interesting that we're kicking the can down the road. Kids, you do science, you learn about science, you should have careers in science. Those are very high numbers. So this was very interesting, and it was very clear that this kind of data we cannot keep close to our West. We don't have the answers to this, and we need to foster a global conversation around this. And so I was called to be the chief science advocate. And I was like, wait a minute, what is this now? Chief Science Advocate? Because I know all the roles that are at 3M, and I'm like, that doesn't exist. Nobody moved from that role. And if you Google it, it doesn't exist either. And you know how people say, well, I got the call. I was sitting at the beach. And I always go, you did not get the call. Well, you do get the call. I was sitting at the Amsterdam airport when I got the call. And the whole flight back, I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to let them know that I can't do this role because I never thought of myself as the science and engineering type when I was growing up. I never went to any of the top schools because I did not secure admission. And I came into 3M through the back door as a summer intern, so I'm going to have to let them know. So all this is going on in my mind. The whole evolutionary thing of, oh my God, you're not deserving, you can't do this, this is not for you, that entire flight. And when I landed, they said, well, we're going to show you this data. So they show me all this data, and I'm like, who did you question, and who did you ask, and how did you add, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized that it's all about the perception, and their perception is their reality. The public is reacting to their perception of science. And then it all started coming together for me. How I felt as a child growing up, and why I wasn't excited about STEM. And then my experiences as a parent in raising my 2 kids, a son and a daughter. And all those experiences kind of came together, and I said, I'm going to do it. So I became the first chief science advocate for 3M, and I'm very glad I took this role. So I broke it down into A, B, and C. A is for raising the awareness, appreciation, and acknowledgement of science. We have to move people from this apathy. B is about barriers and biases and boundaries and beliefs, things like, right brain, left brain, I wasn't good at math and science, so you won't be either, or I'm not a genius, science is not for me, or I'm a girl, I don't do science, things like that. We all see the media image of scientists sometimes, right? It's the maverick, it's the evil, it's the loner, it's the diabolical, it's the nerd. That is not going to inspire little girls, or boys for that matter, I'll say. So there's a lot that needs to happen and is slowly happening there. And finally, we have to communicate science with a context that is important and relatable to people. Science solves problems. Scientists help improve lives, and that is what is important. So that's what we started doing when we started our whole science advocacy platform in relation to the results of this survey. And if you don't recognize that's me, that's the science of makeup and lighting. I thought it was a pretty good picture. And then, of course, my kids, they're like, yeah, it's a good picture. And my daughter told me, Mommy, very gently she broke it to me, is that you do know it doesn't look like you. And I said, well, my name's on it. And I'm on the cover of a magazine. I was reminded it's a tween magazine. And now I'm on the cover of a science magazine. I'm telling you, anybody who has teenage daughters will root for me on this one. The struggle is real. And then I told them that I'm going to get very active on social media. They were freaked out. They thought, oh my gosh, no, you're going to embarrass yourself. And you and I, we all know that they were more afraid that I would embarrass them. But I had to tell them, you have to communicate if you're going to advocate, and you have to be out there. And that's what we have done. You got to spread the message. And communication is key. You look at some of the results from 2019. People said, I want scientists to communicate. We want them to communicate in easy, relatable language. And if you look at the fine print, 58% believe that scientists are elitist. And if we don't communicate, that number goes up. It's not good for scientists, and it's not good for science. So what do we do when these results became available? Every year we've been doing this. And so I'm just giving a sampling of some of the things we did, just like I gave you sampling of some of the results. So we created a Scientists as Storytellers guide, where we have lots of impactful advice from really strong communicators. We have Alan Alda, who actually some of you may know has the Institute for Communication for Science. We have Katie Couric, the broadcast journalist. We have Scott Kelly, the astronaut who spent a year in space in the name of science. Powerful, powerful communicator for science. And we also did a podcast called Science Champions. So we took all the results of the survey and picked it apart with educators, teachers, scientists, innovators, just trying to understand what the public perception is and what do we do about it. We also did a series called Beyond the Beaker. This was very interesting because people are like, well, scientists, you know, they're over there. Oh, they're real people, just like everybody else, and they have hopes and dreams and desires. So we actually did this series where we portrayed them as real people doing real people stuff like your neighbor would. And it was important because of the results of the survey. And then I take this message around the world, and we meet with a lot of groups and a lot of entities, organizations, corporations, government, and we pull in celebrities to help amplify the message. One of the things that we did in 2020 was this Science at Home video series. 55 million kids alone in the US suddenly transitioned to distance learning. So it's very important to keep that excitement with science going. And my colleagues, they were working around the clock to attack the pandemic from all angles, with doubling and then doubling again the production of our respirators. So what can we do who were not part of that business and were at home? So we created this series, did simple, easy to follow experiments by diverse 3M scientists and also some guests like Miss America, who was a scientist last year, so that was kind of nice. And I did the vinegar and baking soda experiment, and we had just one balloon, and I had never done that experiment before, and it's not fun doing that with two scientists at home. We got it right, but you can see my excitement because it was so important to get it right. So check it out, summer's around the corner. Please send it to your friends and family so that they can follow along with the kids. And then I write a lot. And I write about topics that are very relevant to our science advocacy. So the fact that you have to make the connection with everyday life, because there are people out there saying, if science didn't exist, my life would be no different. We can't have that. So we have to constantly make this connection. We have to put a spotlight on the idea that science is a human endeavor, not some distant ivory tower thing which them scientists over there are doing. Because it'll be a problem if we have this chasm with the general public, especially when we need them to follow science. We know how that played out. And then we have to keep the STEM encouragement and exposure constantly out there. And then I also talk about the problem of underrepresentation of women and girls in science and STEM. And it starts from early exposure all the way to late career. So I talk about how we need to shatter the stereotypes. We need to tell the wholesome story about science so we can inspire more minds. We have to provide this exposure and encouragement. And men have to be allies and advocates in this. It's not a zero-sum game. We'll all benefit from it. And then I talk about metrics and measures, because we all know sometimes in organizational and corporate settings, the numbers don't move if we don't have metrics and measures in place. And this is important, and that's why 3M has a lot of diversity goals, and we have made them very transparent and publish those because the public wants that. And that's what we heard from them in 2020. So you must be thinking, what else did we find out as the pandemic hit about the public perception? So let me share some results from that. Very interesting. Look at the high numbers. This is a pandemic pulse taken during the full-blown pandemic. People are saying, yes, we need to follow the science, because if we don't, there's going to be serious consequences. So this is a great relief, because sometimes we only hear of and from a very vocal minority. But these numbers, globally, you can see people trust science to get them out of the pandemic. And what are the consequences if people don't follow science? They are pointing the right things. You're going to have risk of health issues, environmental impact, and economic impact. Who are you trusting? Very interesting. People trust science and science-based organizations. So this is also very good to see, because I don't know about you, I would get all these WhatsApp messages from around the world. And I'd look at this and I'd go, no, this is not right. And I would then privately message and say, don't spread this. Like, I don't read it, I just forward it. I'm like, what? So that's what a lot of people are doing. And people assume that people are reading and believing in that, but it looks like people kind of know where to put their trust in, and they're putting it in the right place. So this is good to know. Now, this is interesting. Healthcare, of course, was top of mind for people. Find something that can solve this virus issue. But they're also, the year that it was, remember 2020, we can never forget it. Social justice, STEM equity, even slightly higher than mitigation of climate change. That's what's top of mind for people at that time. And then, pandemic pulled the importance of STEM education. Now people said that they are more willing to accept that the world needs more people pursuing STEM careers, and that STEM education is crucial. So that's what the pandemic did. Nobody wanted a pandemic for the world to recognize the importance of science, but that has happened, and that's why now is the time to act. Now, this is interesting. These are the barriers that people say are holding them back. There are access to science classes, being told that I wasn't smart enough, my gender, my race, my ethnicity. And globally, that number is 27%. I won't even ask you to guess how high it is in the US. 50% of those who were discouraged in the US said it is because of their race, gender, or ethnicity. So that is really something we have to work on. Now, corporations do have a license. People want corporations to step up and do something. And the younger generation is expecting corporations to step up even with social issues. And we have all seen how that has happened in the last 2 years. So if you pull it all together, the way I like to say it is 2020, with the pandemic, became the year to stem skepticism because of 4 key relationships that became very clear. The first I call science of health for the health of science. When our health was involved, science got personal. And the interest in our own health provided a way in for people to understand how science works. And it is good because it gave an opportunity for them to understand that it relies on data and debate and discourse and discussion. And it is a good thing that scientists changed their mind because new data became available. And that's how science works, so that it can't be politicized easily. Technology and sociology of trust. It was very clear where people are placing their trust. So it is a clear opportunity for scientists and science-based organizations to step up in their active advocacy so we can bolster the foundation of public trust in science. The third, I call it engineering of sustainable solutions. When the pandemic hit, humans took a pause and they saw nature thriving. Remember those pictures of dolphins in the canal, and the Himalayas were visible again from the town that I have grown up in. And people are like, oh, so we are causing some of this. And so that connection was made. And so now is that opportunity to say, yes, just like science solved for the pandemic, science can play a strong role in this environmental problems that we have. And this is not it. There is another very interesting way we can have engineering of a sustainable talent pipeline, because a lot of research shows that those who are underrepresented in STEM have very strong pro-social and communal goals. So it is really a win-win of posing this problem as we care about community, these are the problems in the community, and bringing them together. And then finally, the math of equality and accountability. People hold governments responsible for a lot of the social things that need to happen, but they're also stepping up and saying that the maximum benefit comes when everybody works collectively. Government, academia, NGOs, corporations, and down to the individual. So this is a very interesting juncture in time when science has been connected to sustainability, science has been connected to health, science has been connected to social justice, and it is getting a very human context. And that message really resonates with me. Because I grew up in a university town. It was a STEM town. My dad was a university professor. He was a civil engineer with a PhD in civil engineering, and he got his PhD in England, so as a young family, we lived there. And as I was growing up, I was not the child who tore apart their toys. Actually, my toys still exist. I showed them to my husband. And I wasn't curious about how the toys worked. I was very interested in the human context. That is what drove me, and I was always interested in the humanities subjects because they deeply resonated with me. And although I was in this town surrounded by STEM professionals, nobody took the time to connect my pro-social goals with that. However, the time and day I grew up in, there was a strong influence of what your parents wanted. You just did it. And so I actually went into science, and they knew something I didn't. I came to the US for graduate school, and I ended up at 3M. And here we have this very strong emphasis on collaboration. We have a very strong culture of empowerment, and we have a very strong communal context of improving lives. It became the perfect place for me. I have no expertise in one area, never thought of myself as the science type, and here I am today. I have 75 patents to my name. I'm at the highest level that you can attain as a scientist at 3M. I'm the first woman engineer to ever achieve this level, fourth woman, and we have our Carlton Society, the 3M Hall of Fame. I've been inducted into that. I was awarded the highest achievement award by the Society of Women Engineers in 2020. And the reason why I drag you through this story is because I want you to think about what I think about each and every day. How many ideas, how many innovations, how many students and how many scientists are we missing out on because of the way we teach, the way we track, the way we typify, and the way we even talk about STEM. And that is the message that I really wanted to bring into this role that I got additional on top of my scientist role. And that's why in those ads you will see I wanted to bring that exact story. That I'm a scientist at 3M, but I work in collaboration with others. We build on each other's ideas. And what we do helps people. And science is not that one aha genius moment. It is a journey. So this really resonates, the whole human context. And I can give you my spiel, the real shtick is STEM. Science, humanities, technology, engineering, and math. And let me tell you why I say that. I will show you data. 45% people said they only believe science that aligns with their personal beliefs. Science is not a belief system. And the only way to get out of this trust paradox situation is to teach science with a human context and advocate for science with a societal perspective. And that should foster trust and instill hope. And hope turned out to be the sentiment around science in 2021. So remember what's happening in 2021. Vaccines are out, countries and regions are opening up, and people are feeling hopeful. And it's not just hope for the vaccine, but hope for our future and hope for the next generation and hope for the planet. So people have connected those things, which is really good to see. There is also renewed focus on STEM because of the pandemic. Look at these numbers. 90% of the people around the world say that the world needs more people pursuing STEM. It's important to increase diversity and inclusion in STEM, 88%. 87% agree that more needs to be done to keep girls and women engaged. And why is diversity important? Many, many reasons. One simple reason, we need to creatively crack a lot of problems. We are going to be 9 billion on this planet in less than a few decades. And we have to unlock the secrets to a sustainable future. And we have, absolutely must have, creativity and diversity and address this from all angles. And we're not going to be able to do that if we all look the same, think the same, feel the same. If we all have the same background or come from the same community or same college for that matter. It's a matter of our survival. We need that next diverse pipeline of students. And it impacts talent pipelines of companies like ours and companies like yours and companies that you students might join or heck run someday. And that's why we are aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. And that's why we are committed to innovation and creating this diverse community of scientists and professionals, because it is very important. And so when we saw these results, what do? We are all locked down in the pandemic. And it was very interesting. We actually launched a docuseries. It's called Not the Science Type. I know you love our Post-it notes and our masks and things like that, but who would have thought? But this was the route we took for our innovation because we're so serious about our science advocacy. And movies and media, they have a strange way of shaping what turns out to be the context that people work in. So we thought this was a good thing. And I'm just honored to be one of the scientists featured in it. And with this documentary, we want to, inform, we want to influence, and hopefully inspire. We want to catalyze this conversation around challenging the constructs. We want to dismantle those archetypes and shatter the stereotypes of who enters, who persists, and who excels in STEM. We want to say your potential is exponential. You can blaze trails. You can bring in your passions. You can shape your careers, and you can pursue your interests like I did in social sciences and humanities, but still be successful in STEM. So this was actually premiered during the Tribeca Film Festival, which was interesting. It was filmed during COVID, which was really interesting. And then we got selected for the brand showcase at the Sundance Film Festival. There were no celebrity sightings. Omicron hit, pivoted to virtual. So that was interesting. But I want you to share in the excitement. So if you don't mind, I'm going to show you the trailer of this.
There's a stereotype of scientists, one, that they're male and they're boring, they don't dress well, and they're like very awkward. I'm obviously not that type.
My name is Dr. Sierra Civils. I'm a nuclear engineer.
My name is Dr. Jessica Taff. I'm a microbiologist.
My name is Jayshree Seth. I'm a scientist at 3M.
My name is Gitanjali Rao. I'm 15 years old, and I'm an innovator, scientist, and promoter of STEM.
I was the first Black woman to get a PhD in nuclear engineering. I saw that as an opportunity to open the door for people that look like me to come and be involved in these fields.
A scientist is anybody, and it shouldn't be based on age, race, or gender. It should be based on our capabilities and our motivation to tackle world problems.
I want to tell the next generation of STEM students that you don't have to be what people expect from a scientist. The more stereotypes we break, the better outcomes we're going to have because we invite more people into the world of science. We need every diverse perspective in order to solve problems. Wherever we're going, wherever we're racing, we're gonna keep riding.
If you inspire a girl and show her the different ways that she can do what she loves,
You open their eyes. Then they look at you and think, if she can do that, I can do that. And my message to them is, yes, you can.
she can change the world.
What is really interesting about this is the role of role models and how people need to see these kinds of things before they will actually think that they can do it. And that was one of the main reasons why we wanted to create this. And the thing is, diversity is not a nice to do anymore. It's a must do. And most people are recognizing that finally, that we have to have this and have a lot more women where we, in STEM, and especially in pockets where we don't have as many women. And it was great to see mechanical engineering had, those are one of those pockets where we need more women. So science is important, we all know that. Innovation requires science, and science is demanding diversity, and diversity warrants equity. So how do we address the problem of equity? So I like to call it the ecosystem. Lots of E's in there, and all through exposure, encouragement, empowerment, all the way to equity, there's a lot that a lot of us can do because there's many problems in there. And the reason why a lot of people are not going into STEM is they don't even know the STEM careers that exist. So that access is so important. And then you step along the way, there are all sorts of challenges that people face, which makes them either go to STEM and not stay. And that's another problem. So it's across the spectrum. And people expect others to do something about it, which is interesting. But there is something that we can all do when we dig deep into our own pockets of privilege, and we all have them. And so anything that we can do to advance the cause, I think, is very important. Because these messages are something that the community needs to hear, and it is good for science, and it is good for our community. And so that's the whole message we want to give with this. And we all know that environments that lack diversity are like closed communities. They are echo chambers. And the same voices just keep reverberating and reflecting. And as a result, science has a very narrow point of view then. And we have all seen in the last 2+ years that there is a need for a broader social context and perspective to build a more diverse community and science as a more inclusive space. And that's why it's really important. And it doesn't matter what your gender or age or ethnicity is, science needs you to be you. Because diverse workforce is a robust and resilient workforce. Increase in diversity is correlated with increased innovation. increasing diversity is related to an increased positive public perception of science, because the public will then see the science community is reflecting what the societal makeup is. And it's also very important for corporations, because science and the diversity in science will allow more loyalty for increasingly progressive customers. So that's why this is all very important, and there's a lot of effort right now to ensure that there is equitable engagement, participation, and success of those who are historically marginalized. And we hear about it, and sometimes people wonder, why are we focusing so much on this? We are focusing on this so much because it is so important for our collective future. So we all have to do whatever we can to facilitate diversity, to foster that inclusion, and to really further the cause of equity. And that's the message we want to take. And people ask me, what can I do? And again, I echo what Dean said. You don't have to be in science to do these things. Yes, we need more science and we need more people in science, but we also need more science-minded people. We also need more support for science, and we also need those who can communicate the social kind of context and benefits of science. So you can invest in the next generation and nurture them and plant the seeds of STEM and watch them grow into well-informed, critical thinking problem solvers. So I say you can give your voice to STEM. You can volunteer, you can organize, you can inspire, you can champion through your workplace, you can champion with your local community, your local school, your science teacher, the science clubs, the science fairs. There's so much that can be done with the school boards. And you can simply engage with young minds. You can engage with their curiosity. You can engage with their sense of wonder, and you can then engage in learning together. And that is what is important. So I want to close with my own attempt to create community in science and make hashtag 2020 count. It was a tough year for many reasons. It was definitely tough for us in Minnesota, for whatever happened in our backyard, which should never be forgotten. And it also made me think deep into my own privilege. And being a highly educated scientist working from home and seeing what was unfolding. And I wanted to be productive with purpose. And so I took many of the essays that I've written on different topics and I pulled them together into this book, and it was actually published by the Society of Women Engineers. And all the proceeds from the sales go to a scholarship for Black and Latinx women in STEM, administered through Society of Women Engineers. Exactly 1 year later, I was invited to give the Silas Ethics Lecture at Georgia Tech. And it was between Delta and Omicron, so I decided to go. It was my first in-person event. And it turns out that the first scholar from the scholarship that this book sales does actually had joined Georgia Tech. So we were talking about science. I thought that's a sign. And I got to meet her. And to actually meet a person whose trajectory you may have contributed to, I cannot explain that feeling to you. And coming back on that plane ride, I had already decided I was going to write another book. And my husband was like, here goes. And so I did write another book. And last month, we actually launched Engineering Fine Print. And in this one, I talk about the experiences from the last 2+ years. And the idea that true growth and real leadership and self-actualization actually comes from digging deep into your own feelings, dissecting them, really getting in touch with your identity and the evolution, really understanding needs at an innate human level, and then integrating all of that with your lived experience so you can work through transitions that are tough and reflections that are deep and actions that are meaningful. And this is also the same scholarship. So I will end exactly where I started. I need your hand in advocating for science. And how can you do that? If you buy this book, it's not just what you take away, it's also what you give, which is the gift of education. So I welcome you all to go on Amazon and look for these books and buy them and spread the word, because that's something we can do. And I truly believe that every one person can make a difference, and get that feeling of actually coming together collectively and doing just that. So with that, we are all connected. This is a picture that I took in Ghana, which is where the Sankofa Scholarship and that idea was born. And I just kept staring at this, showing how interconnected we all are. And sometimes we just forget to step outside of our silos. So thank you, and stay tuned for our results for 3M State of Science Index 2022. They are coming next week. And with that, hands down, you've been the best audience. I join my hands to you.
So I promised you a wonderful lecture, and I did not disappoint. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Now, there were a few questions that were submitted ahead of time by the audience, and I was hoping you could spend a minute or two and sort of reflect on those. And one of the ones, you know, as you can see through the images and your ability to impact the young people that you meet, you know, one of the things that comes through is when a senior person can impact a person younger than them. And that goes through by many names. A common one is mentorship. And I know that it is often a challenge to find a good mentor-mentee relationship. So I'm wondering if you could speak to the importance of, you know, mentorship in achieving some of the goals. Because that may be something that we could do through our alumni board. And, you know, if somebody wants a mentor, how do they find one as a young person? And if somebody wants a mentee, how do they find one?
Interesting. Lots of questions in there. So I think the role of mentors for those who are in the underserved communities or historically marginalized, I think it is incredible to have accessible role models who can serve as mentors and really help those students navigate. Because if there is one single problem, I think that would be the biggest problem, it's navigation. How do you even go to apply? What classes do you take? And things like that. So very important. When you get to college, again, if you are in a minority group, it's very important to feel that sense of connectedness and somebody giving you some guidance. So those two, I think it's extremely important. Mentors are good for everybody. Mentorship is good, but so are relationships, so are partnerships, and so are friendships. So I don't mean to be a contrarian, but I will tell you in my 30 years, almost 30 years at 3M, there was only 1 year that I had an assigned mentor through a diversity mentoring program. I have never had anybody who I can call a mentor. And I am okay with that. And the reason why I say this, because I have menteeship. And I only found this in looking back. And what that means is I was willing to learn from anybody and everybody. So the reason why I'm giving this sort of contrarian view is because I get so many people coming and saying, can you be my mentor? Can you be my mentor? Can you be my mentor? And I get the concept that somebody told them, you gotta get a mentor. But I'm not a believer in that task of getting a mentor, but really having menteeship, which means you're willing to learn from those around you. It isn't just that one person who teaches you something, but everybody. So learn from your parents, learn from your kids, learn from those you work for, learn from those who work for you. And that kind of philosophy also helps because I want to ease the pressure that you may feel to have that one mentor. And one view doesn't cut it these days. There's so much to learn from so many people. But if you're looking for a mentor, I think it's important to understand what stage of the career or progression you are in. In your formative meandering, it's the navigation that is important. When you're figuring yourself out, then people closer to you are more important. Your boss, your coworkers, your managers, somebody in your group, somebody in your environment. And when you're on your path to enlightenment, you need wisdom from people who can make you see completely different perspectives. And that's kind of what I think happens.
Awesome. No, that's great. It's a corollary to the "it takes a village."
There you go.
Yes,
It
I
does.
like that. So a second question that came in, and I think we have time for one more. It's about unconscious bias. And this permeates society, and to this day still sort of continues to impact inequality, as you'd pointed out rightly,
Yep.
in STEM fields. And so you'd pointed out the challenges. What are some of the strategies to explicitly address this type of unconscious bias in organizations such as corporations, universities, and the like?
Yes, very important. So I think you need corporate values, organizational values. You need leaders who speak to those and live those values. You need metrics that drive management behavior towards these values. But most importantly, we need each and every one of us practicing those. And what I mean by that is acknowledging that we all have bias, and we do. Appreciating why we have it, because it allows us to function. But making sure that we're aware that we're not using it such that bias turns into discrimination, microaggression, prejudice, all of those things, and keep continually assessing it in yourself. And so I think it takes a 360 view. Actually, I just wrote about this, the right angle cutting on the bias. And what I talked about there is you've got to up, in, down, and out. So you got to speak up when you confront bias or when you witness bias, and you have to speak up and respectfully bring that to people's attention. And by the same token, you have to be open to hearing that as well. And I've been on both sides, let me tell you. And then you have to check in with people casually. And what I mean by that is you've got to have these relationship building moments with people. And that's what fosters trust, and that's where you have the environment where you actually can speak up and bring it up. Because it's not easy if you're in a hierarchical sort of position to bring it up, because it instigates fear and all those things. But most people in senior levels, I have found, are very thankful when somebody points out something to them, because they want to be effective. And if it's making them less effective. So check in with people casually and have these moments of connectedness that allow you to build on our human level. And then the third one is to venture out and meet with those you don't meet regularly. Mm-hmm. Just venture out and go into environments where you wouldn't, I call it the sound of silos. You got to get out of that. And so it may even be like I'm in the lab, but getting out and conversing with the marketing folks, or talking to manufacturing, or talking to sales. Or it could be going to a community event that is not about my nationality or my ethnicity. Going to Festival of Nations to see the vibrance of cultures and just immersing yourself in that. And that helps making those bridges. And then it also helps to understand what is the discomfort about. And it gives you a moment of introspection when you have to say, why was I uncomfortable? And that introspection actually allows you to make sure you understand your own biases. And the final one is pin down. Pin down your own biases. And an easy way to do that is talk to young folks. So my kids have really helped me adjust my mental models and to make sure my bias isn't creeping into my judgment. So interacting is very important for that, to pin down. Because let's just get this out. Everybody thinks they don't have bias, and it's very hard to admit that they do. But, hopefully, we've done a good job. Like, our kids will just go for us there and explain to us. So I think it's very important in our ideas. So if you think about it, be vocal, stay vigilant, initiate informal interactions, assess and access other networks, and self-assess and self-monitor. And it spells bias, by the way. You figured this out about me. I love acronyms. And I have only 3M to blame. 3M's acronyms. So bias, yeah.
So please join me in thanking Dr. Seth again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You have had your boss in attendance. I had my boss's 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 boss in attendance. So how about that under pressure? Thank you, Mike, for being here.
And I saw him clap, I think, so yes. Thank you. So we'll be sending everybody who registered for tonight's event a follow-up email, as was mentioned before. It's going to have a link with a recording of the lecture. It'll have sound on the video. And please feel free not just to consume it yourselves, spread it. Send it to your friends. Forward it on WhatsApp. No, get the word out, really. That's what we're looking to do. And tell other people that you know about the two books that Dr. Seth has. If you'd like to learn more, you can certainly go ahead and look online. It is available. And the links to the books are also going to be made available in the follow-up email. I'd like to take a particular moment to thank the members of the CSE Dean's Club who are here tonight. The Dean's Club honors the philanthropic leaders who generously contribute $1,000 or more to any CSE program in an academic year. So the Dean's Club members who pre-registered for tonight's event can now proceed to the 4th floor for a small private reception where Dr. Seth and I look forward to continuing tonight's discussion. If you'd like to learn more about the Dean's Club, including benefits and exclusive events, please visit csc.umn.edu/Dean's Club. That's DENSCLUB. And I will end by saying just thank you all for coming, and we hope you remain engaged and connected with CSE. And please, please, please continue to follow her urgings and advice and advocate for STEM wherever and whenever you can. Good night.